introductory literature. I've captioned this, get the big picture. Apologists are good at focusing on trees, and that's important. But to be truly effective, you have to be able to place those trees in the context of the forest. And so I think it's important to be able to see the panorama of what you're doing. And the quickest way to begin to do that is by reading a good introductionary section. Obviously, you have to read the text first, but an introduction is helpful. Now, when we talk about, if you want to talk about the Bible with a non-LDS Christian, and your sole preparation is you went to seminary as a teenager and you sat passively in gospel doctrine for the last 20 years and haven't even read the assignments, which is the case for most people, then I'm sorry, but you are not prepared to have those conversations. You're going to have to goose up your knowledge of the Bible. And one way that, there's a lot of things you can do, but these are kind of first step things. And one of the first steps is to read a good introduction. I've mentioned for the Old Testament, one that I like is by Roland Kenneth Harrison. He's dead now, but he was a long time at the University of Toronto. His introduction to the Old Testament is quite thick, but it goes over all the basic Old Testament scholarship for the last 200 years. And so that's an excellent foundation for Old Testament scholarship. In the New Testament, I mentioned a couple that I like, Raymond Brown, Catholic scholar, and Bart Ehrman, who's a Protestant. Now, there's nothing magical about these. I mean, there's lots of good introductions to the Bible. I just mentioned some that I happen to like. When we go to the Book of Mormon, for a long time we had no decent single introduction to the Book of Mormon. And that has been changed with Terrell Gibbons' book, By the Hand of Mormon, out of Oxford. And if you want to get into the Book of Mormon scholarship, and you're just got to get started, obviously read the text first, but then read Gibbons' book, because that'll give you an overview of Book of Mormon scholarship and also Book of Mormon polemics. If you want to do Book of Mormon studies, you need to be familiar with some Midland. And it almost doesn't matter which one you pick up. I just wrote down 6 more because that's my personal favorite. John Sorenson's An Ancient American Setting for the Book of Mormon is absolutely seminal, and there's just no question, you have to read that book. Also, if you haven't been following Farms tends to focus on the Book of Mormon. And if you haven't been following Farms research over the years, then one way to, again, kind of climb up that learning curve quickly is to read Echoes and Evidences, which is a recent book from Farms. And it kind of summarizes a lot of Nibley and Sorens and the other Farms authors and their conclusions. And finally, since Book of Mormon authorship is a big issue, I threw on the list Book of Mormon authorship revisited, which has a lot of essays specifically with that topic. Anything having to do with the JST itself, Moses, Joseph Matthew, you're going to need Robert J. Matthews' A Plainer Translation, which is the introduction. And even if you don't read the book, you should have it on your shelf. It's available in paperback. It's not that expensive, and it's well organized, so you can find particular things that you're looking for. LDS Church history. That's a huge topic. Let me first of all recommend, if you're interested in that you join the Mormon History Association, and that will be a help to you. But if you just want to read first books to get started, I think you need a good one-volume history, and the best of those is the one by Jim Allen and Glenn Leonard, Story of the Letters. And then if you're interested, especially in apologetic uses of church history, you should read Richard Bush and Joseph Smith at the Beginnings of Mormonism, because it deals with the foundation of things. The Book of Abraham is kind of an advanced topic in apologetics. The literature is extensive, much of it is highly technical, much of it has to do with languages, and I have no idea really, but I would be surprised if there were more than a couple of dozen people on the face of the planet that really have control of the literature. But you can become a Book of Abraham scholar if you want to, but it takes some motivation and it takes some reading. In my bedroom at home, I've got a hutch with big stacks of Book of Abraham literature. And You've got a lot of reading ahead of you if you want to bone up on the Book of Abraham. But how do you get started if you want to? Well, you need to read there are several histories of the Book of Abraham. My personal favorite is J. Todd's The Saga of the Book of Abraham, which suffers from two defects. It's out of print, and it's dated. The out of print I can't help you unless you can go to a bookseller and get it at a premium. As far as dated, you can supplement it with material written by H. Donald Peterson. He has an article on Level and Biblical Studies, which would do it, or even better, you can supplement it with his book, which is called Mormon's Manuscripts of Money, something like that. You need to read John Gee's Guide to the Joseph Smith Papyri. It's a very skinny book. I noticed that in the back of the note. And in terms of getting at the issues, just figuring out what the questions are is challenging. And a good introduction to that is Jeff Lindsay's back on the subject. Now, the next topic I wanted to mention is the journals. And what I'd like to do is just go ahead and run through the list of journals that we have. You know, there's an expression that you see today, people wear bracelets that say WWJD, what would Jesus do? And for the few of you that are South Park fans, if you saw the South Park movie and it had this song, what would Brian Boitano do? Well, I'm going to ask the question, what would Hugh Nibley do? If Hugh Nibley were a novice apologist, what would he do? And I can guarantee you, he would take these journals and he would read them from stem to stern. And most of these are not older than 30 or 35 years, so it's still a very doable text. 100 years from now, it might be hard to do, but right now, it's still very doable. Many of these are on CD-ROMs, they're accessible. And if I were a novice apologist and I wanted to quickly increase my knowledge, I would take these journals and start from the beginning, and you don't have to read every word. If you're not interested in an article, just skip it or skim it. But I'd start from the beginning and I'd read up to the current edition. I guarantee you that would be an education in Mormonism. The ensign, I kind of started this. I was a missionary. You know, the missionary department had old, dusty stacks of ensigns, and I read them all. And just doing that, all of a sudden you'll become, you know, one of the most knowledgeable people in your ward or state. If you just do that, I've given. There are some kind of internet tools, like cumulative tables of contents and things like that. So I've given you addresses to websites that will be useful for this purpose. And then going on to the final category is bibliographies. And a good bibliography is kind of your window to the rest of the literature. So you've read an introduction, and the journal literature is kind of current scholarship. But there's more than that. There are books that you need to be familiar with. And the bibliographies are the medium to that. If you get one of the big handouts, I printed out, there are further reading lists or bibliographies for the Book of Mormon, Book of Abraham, Old Testament, and New Testament. If you don't get one of those, don't despair. Those things are all available on the farm's website. That's where I took them. So the material's available on the internet. Now that is kind of a thumbnail sketch of some of the resources that are available, both for apologetics specifically and also for ratcheting up your gospel scholarship. Now we have some time for questions. I'd like to join me up here and see if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask us.